Can you imagine being so obsessed with someone else's life that, you every night you go home and write little notes about them or spend time on your computer, like in your pajamas, like writing hateful things? Like, it's just despicable human behavior. It really is.
I'm Jamie Beebe.
And I'm Jake Deptula. On today's episode of Strictly Stalking, we're chatting with Scarlett, a former interior designer, small business owner, and blogger who's been stalked for over 6 years by someone she's never met.
In 2014, she began receiving a series of abusive and harassing letters in the mail, viciously attacking her and accusing her husband of cheating.
These character assassinations went on for years, causing Scarlett to lose her businesses and fear for her life until she eventually took matters into her own hands.
Why don't you start off and just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, as you said, I'm a former interior designer, and I worked in sort of corporate type design for a large paint company for many years. And I had kids in the early 2000s and decided to become a stay-at-home mom sort of in the late 2000s when my kids got to school age. And I had a number of small businesses. I did direct sales. I had a makeup business, and yeah, that's kind of when the stalking started, about, like you said, in 2014. And I've been married since 1996. So I've been with my husband for, it's going on 28 years. I was really active when social media first sort of hit in the late 2000s, and really active as an entrepreneur, mompreneur type blogger. And then it seemed like when my blog started to take off, that's when the stalking started. I had a blog probably starting in about 2010, 2011 as sort of a way to market my businesses. So I was blogging like intermittently, not super actively, like maybe once a month or once every couple of months. And it was like late 2013, early 2014 when I really decided to like ramp up my blog. And I was kind of shifting directions. I wanted to sort of get away from doing like in-person direct sales and do more like online marketing. So I was really shifting my focus towards blogging as business or blogging for business. And that was when we were still doing like advertising on blogs for income, stuff like that. So I was kind of working towards that. And it was around that time that I started receiving these harassing letters. And I'll never forget, because my family was away for spring break and we were in Palm Springs. We came back from Palm Springs, and, our neighbor was bringing in the mail, and there was this pile of mail on the table, and there was one envelope, and it was like printed, and it only had my first name and last name on it, but no address. So it had been clearly dropped at my house when we were away. And it sat on the table for a couple of days because it actually looked like some sort of flyer, like a letter from a realtor or something like that. So I didn't open it right away. And, one evening I was going through the mail and I opened it, and it was this crazy letter that, it almost looked legitimate because it said, we've been watching you from afar. We think you're like amazing. We think you're an awesome blogger, but you should know that, your life isn't what it seems. Your husband's cheating on you. You don't even know the half of it. And that was sort of it. So of course my heart dropped to the floor, and it like right away, like I felt like, oh my God, you never want to receive something like that in the mail. And, I didn't even know what to do at first. Like do I ask him? Do I not ask him? So of course, I called him right away and I said, like, I got this letter, almost accusing him of something. And of course, I shouldn't say of course, but, at the time, he denied. There's nothing going on. This is not what it seems. I have no idea where that came from. And, we had like some long, hard conversations that evening. And then the following couple of days while we tried to sort of sort this out, like, who would do this? Why would someone say this? So we kind of worked through it, and that was that. And then a few months, maybe it was I'm going to say about 2 months later, I got something again, and it was mailed this time. And this one went into much more detail. basically saying like, we think maybe you didn't see our first letter. We think you're not looking at the truth. And it was a little more disturbing, let's say. More disturbing language. I think they realized like maybe she didn't see the first one. Maybe it got thrown away. So this went a little harder, a little deeper, a little more vulgar, I would say. And again, really accusatory, but it praised me a lot, which was funny. Like, we think you're an amazing blogger. We think you're, a superstar. You are a feminist, like all this different stuff, like praising me. But your husband's a jerk and like, you don't know it and da, 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 da. So, the fact that it was really unsettling, and the fact that this came out of nowhere, we decided together, my husband and I, to call the police. So we had the police come to our house, make a report. It was a young constable. I'm in Canada, so police force is a bit different. A young constable, and he took a report down and gave us some tips, like maybe you should stay off the internet, maybe you should quit your blog, maybe you should stop doing social media. Don't forget, this is 2014, so maybe at that time you could stop doing social media. So, we just went from there. We were moving at the time, moving homes. So, we just continued on with our packing and moving. And the day that we moved, we got another letter. So this was just only a few short weeks later. More of the same kind of stuff.
You got this other letter to your new house?
To our old house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, we sort of thought, well, okay, fine, make another police report. We called the policeman. He said, okay, well, sort of more of the same. Just keep your new address private. And when you move, make sure you don't tell too many friends and just your close people. Make sure your number is unlisted, da, 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 da. So we moved and kind of thought, well, we're going to leave that behind us. But within 6 months, we got a letter to our new house.
Did you ever believe the letters, or were you believing in your husband?
It was complicated. It was like a complicated time. Of course, there's always a kernel, or there's something inside you that, wants to be logical. Me especially, like, I'm a very logical person. I'm a straight shooter. We've been together for a long time and have had lots of ups and downs over the years. We've had 2 kids and, it's not a new relationship. It's not like I don't know the person that I'm with, right? But of course, I watch crime shows. Maybe he's crazy. Maybe he's a narcissist or a sociopath that I didn't know, So of course, all these things went through my mind. We went to counseling. We had some advice from a private investigator that we hired. We did a lot of different things in order to get this sorted out. And of course, every time we'd get a letter, it would just dredge up the hurt all over again.
Did you tell anyone else, family or friends, how many people knew before you moved to your new house that you were going to move to a new house?
Probably I think everyone knew that we were moving. I don't know. It's hard to say looking back. It wasn't a secret that we were moving, but I was pretty quiet about where we were moving to, even though it was only a couple of blocks away. I was pretty quiet about it. I didn't put anything on social media about our new address or what area we were moving to. And when I did get that letter the day that we moved, it said in the letter, "Oh, you're going to have fun decorating your new house that's only 6 blocks away." So they knew it was close by. So then I started feeling like, okay, this is a close friend of mine. This is someone in my circle. And as, I slowly kind of started talking to different friends about it, it was really interesting to see which friends felt like I was accusing them and retaliated. Like, how could you think it was me? I'm your best friend. I can't believe you would be accusing me. So I had that reaction. I had other friends that I would just talk to them about it, and they would say, well, it's not me, right? So it kind of created a bit of a divide in my friend group as well. And then there was the other set of friends who would say, well, actually, do you think it's that girl? I actually think it's your other friend, so-and-so.
Did you lose any friends from this?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I did. I had two very good friends. One who I think she just couldn't deal with it and kind of backed away. And I had another one that, felt like I was accusing her and again, sort of backed away. Yeah. It's a difficult thing, because, in this type of situation, every letter would reveal a little bit more in terms of like a detail that they would know about me. So it was almost like little clues, every letter. And I'm still getting letters today. So I don't want to say it in past tense, but every letter that I receive has some sort of little bit of a detail that makes me think, okay, well, that person, it must mean that they live close by to me, or it must mean that I went to high school with them, or it must mean that it's someone that I worked with, because there's little clues all the way along the way. And when you try to sort of dissect and think, okay, well, of this, set of friends that I have, well, I didn't know this person prior to 2010, and I didn't know this person, so there's always little clues there. And it's taken me years and years to sort of realize that it's actually because this person is stalking me and has taken all the details that they can find about my life and sort of slowly leaks them out, I guess, in order to make it seem like they know me, because they're obsessed.
Do you think that's part of the game?
Honestly, it's really hard for me to know, because it has vacillated over the years. Sometimes it speaks in first person. Sometimes the letters are in first person. Sometimes they are speaking collective, like we think this, we think that. So it's all over the place, but there's definitely a lot of personal information in there that you would think only a friend or relative might know. But I guess, I'm 49 years old. I've got a big footprint on the internet, and, there's probably, if you dug deep enough, if you're looking for something about someone, and if you dug deep enough, and if you knew them a little bit, there's things that you can probably find. Or maybe it's a friend of a friend, right? For instance, like in the 80s, I was in Miss Teen Canada, which, probably a lot of friends that I'm friends with now, or parents at the school that I've interacted with. Lots of people wouldn't know that. People I've worked with. It's sort of one of those things you might bring up in one of those questions, like, what's one thing someone would be surprised to know about you, right? So you'd have to do some digging to find that out. I say she because the letters read like it's a woman, but she often says things about, like, when I was first having kids, or the fact that I suffered a miscarriage. That's not something that a lot of people would know. Maybe it's just a stab in the dark. Maybe she's just guessing, but that's sort of something from my past. Certain things about my relationship with my husband that not a lot of people might know about. So, again, it's a bit of a guessing game. I think she's done a lot of research, but I think it's clearly someone who's obsessed, and for some reason they want to destroy my life.
How does your husband handle this?
It's been tough. It's been tough for him. He said it's sort of like, constantly having to defend himself against something that he didn't do. So it's like one of those situations where there's only two people involved in something, and they say you did it and you say you didn't. There's no witnesses, right? So he feels like, he says he has compassion for others that have been accused of something that they didn't do, because all he can say is, I didn't do it. And then, of course, there's the logical things like, well, everyone has an iPhone. Everyone has a recording device. Everyone has a camera at their disposal. So if I actually was out doing something, or was seen somewhere, because sometimes the letters will say, oh, we saw him at a restaurant with someone, or like crazy things like that. Well, why are there no pictures? Why is there no video? Why is there no evidence? It's just words, right? We did at one point hire a private investigator, which was, like over $1,000 to tell us that my husband's not doing anything, which he already knew, but
wow.
there was really nothing. There was nothing to uncover, essentially. And the unfortunate thing about this type of stalking is that it's very, very hard to trace mail, something that comes via snail mail. And I've done a lot of research and calls like to Canada Post and trying to figure out different ways, like with date stamps and time. But, you know, if they can't figure out who the Unabomber is from mail, right?
How did it gradually get, you know, more and more severe?
So after the first few letters, another letter came. I think it was like in 2015. And this one was a little bit of a different tone, and it was sort of apologetic in a way, saying like, I really need to tell you this, and I've been holding this back, but I just want to let you know I had an affair with your husband back in 2006, 2007, and we had a child together, which he doesn't know about, so this is going to be a surprise to him. And my son, we're going to call him Junior. Junior is the same size, same age as your younger daughter. And, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to send you a picture of him, but I just don't want to get him involved. And, I just had to get this off my chest and let you know that I have this child. So, I laughed out loud when I read it, first of all, because I thought... Like, this is absolutely blasphemous. There is absolutely no way that any woman would have a child, not let the father know, not try to get some sort of child support or, monetary help. It just was absolutely ridiculous. Plus, I knew it was just not possible. Okay, so that was the main thing. So when that letter came, that was a switch for me, because then I really realized that this is someone who is like going to try everything they can to harass me, maybe pick on like something that they think is maybe a weak point in my life, try to chip away at my relationship and hurt me. So that was like where I started to shift from feeling like, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm sad, to like, this person is just absolutely not in their right head. And perhaps there's some mental illness there. Not to say anything bad about mentally ill people, nothing like that. But clearly this person needs some psychiatric help. And that was clear to me when I read that letter. The next letters that came, and there was a bit of a lull there. There was about a year where I didn't receive anything. So thought we were in the clear. But no, then we started getting them again. And that's when the letters really started attacking my character. And saying just terrible, horrible things about me, every single thing you can think of, to like, I'm fat, to I'm a flimsy excuse for a woman, I'm not a great entrepreneur, I'm a terrible makeup artist. Like anything good I've ever done has been criticized, ridiculed. We have ladies' nights and we sit around and we talk about you, just like horrible, horrible things. And I know it's coming from a place of hurt, the stalker is coming from a place of hurt, but of course it hurts me every time. Reading things, no matter who they come from, but reading someone who has an utmost hate for you is not an easy thing. Even at this stage in my life, who would have thought you're going to be stalked in your 40s by a bully?
There was nothing they didn't go after, it sounds like.
Yep, there was nothing they didn't go after. And, I had some very, very dark days. I'm a pretty strong person, and, I've got two really successful, strong daughters. And, I've really had to dig deep sometimes to sort of be brave and keep strong. And like I said, I had some really dark days there, but I did get lots of support and help. I've had some help from the police, although it's been challenging. It's been challenging. But, overall, I think once I realized that this person was not in their right mind, that was helpful to me in terms of trying to understand and sort of compartmentalize a little bit more. Oh, and we did get a letter saying that my husband was not the father of the baby.
Oh, you did?
First
after
he
all?
was, and then he wasn't?
Yeah, she switched gears and said, oh, I found out it's a different father. Phew. So that was like, that's been wiped away. It's never been mentioned since, in like the 25 or 30 letters I've gotten since.
When you went to the authorities, what was that like? How did they respond to you?
As I mentioned earlier, we went to the authorities right away, and then since then have made police reports all the way along the way. Sometimes an officer, or we don't call an officer, a constable, will come to our house. Sometimes I've just called in and left a non-emergency report. So I had a pretty long file. And of course, this has been a number of years. So I've had a lot of different constables that I've dealt with over the years as they retire or move on or change departments or whatever. So it's never really gone anywhere other than, just keep a watch out on your social media, make sure you've got a camera outside your home, like different things like that. Of course, we didn't get a camera right away. And then we did receive some stuff at our front door. I had things left on my car parked outside my house. So unfortunately, we didn't get those recorded. Now we have a camera. But, they just keep telling me sort of the same things over and over. And I think it was 2 years ago when we had a young constable come and take a report from us. And he was a newer guy. He was really interested himself in pursuing a career in like the behavior unit. So he thought like this was going to be his case to crack. So he took a real interest in us, and we were super happy because we finally had someone that was going to take it a little bit further than the other ones had before. So he set up some stuff with the behavior unit in Ottawa, which is like the capital of Canada, and he took recorded statements, came to our house late at night, recorded me in private for a couple of hours, recorded my husband for a couple of hours. We did this whole behavior analysis thing. And this took about 8 or 9 months, and sent it to Ottawa. And, we were kind of on pins and needles and also thinking like, this is maybe going to be like what's going to crack the case, right? He talked about fingerprints on the letters, stuff like that. So, it felt like we were moving forward, and it felt like we were going to get some justice. And I was so happy. And I was so happy for his interest. It was a year ago, I think in April, and he called and said, I have a report for you and I'd like you to come down to the station, but I want you to come alone, not with your husband. And, I just felt like a brick had been dropped on my chest because I, immediately thought like something bad. It's going to be, my husband's a sociopath and I've been lied to. Like I had all these scenarios going on in my mind, right? Because when this goes on for this long and you have like hundreds of pages attacking your character, attacking your husband, like your mind can start to kind of play tricks on you, right? And I mean, it's my self-esteem is taking a real kicking as well, right? So it took about 6 weeks from the time that he first called me to when we actually got, because he had to call me when he was on shift, and then emergencies would happen and like he'd have to go deal with crimes and car accidents, whatever. So it took quite a while, but finally he phoned and said, I'm going to come to your house. I'll come pick you up, or whatever it was. And I said, listen, like, I just can't wait anymore. The suspense is killing me. I want you to just tell me on the phone. I feel like you've been unprofessional and you like left us hanging. And he said, okay, well, I guess I'll tell you. But normally when we do something like really deep like this, we want you to come to the station because I want you to meet with a psychologist. But because of this has taken so long, I'll talk to you on the phone. And so my husband picked up the extension. So we were both listening. And he said, our behavior unit, they're very well versed. They're professionals. They deal with stuff like this all the time. And they've taken a long time looking through your letters and your case. And I just want you to know that it is a criminal offense, and we think that you've been writing these letters to yourself. My heart dropped to the floor. My husband looked at me and pointed at me and said, they think it's you. And we both we were just dumbfounded. And I said, well, arrest me then if you think it's me, because you absolutely are wrong. Of course I didn't do this. Why would I do this? And he said, well, we've seen cases before where, the wife tries to catfish the husband in order to maybe get him to admit something. And he said, of course, I don't think that this is what it is. This is their conclusion. And we're not going to arrest you or anything, but, you know, we want to let you know, like, that this is an offense to tamper with the law. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Think, you know, they just didn't really have any concrete conclusion. So that was the conclusion that they came to, that maybe it was me, which of course it's not. And I was offended, but also relieved in a way, because, well, you know, anything I had dreamt up as like a worst case scenario obviously wasn't true. So I was relieved. But I also realized at that point that, you know what, this is something that I'm going to have to learn to live with, because I don't know if I'm ever going to get it solved. And, you know, I just have to go on with my life, protecting myself and my family, you know, living the best life that I can, and knowing that this might go on until this person, like, you know, drops off, gets bored, dies, gets arrested. But I really can't spend any more time trying to figure out who it is, trying to rely on law enforcement to maybe do something, because that's probably not going to happen.
Have they only reached out through mail or dropping mail off at your house? Nothing online?
Nothing online that I know of, no. When I did have a blog, I did shut my blog down after a couple of years, because I felt like this was an avenue for them to find me. So I did, you know, cut my blog, or, you know, cut it off, I guess you could say. But before that, I did a lot of research into IP addresses and tracking IP addresses. And I do have all that information, you know, if it should come to that point. But no, as far as I know, I've never been tracked online or harassed online.
And it's just been letters, right? No gifts or like weird things like that.
When I was blogging, I was doing makeup reviews and stuff. So one time I did receive something with like a phony return address of like of a makeup company and makeup samples inside. So it came as a package. And more recently, I received something that was like a package with money in it, like asking to commission me for services. So it was another sort of like a tricky letter. I've received a lot of Christmas cards over the years with like phony return addresses, things from hotels that look like they're sent from a hotel, like their hotel letterhead, maybe a hotel that my husband's done business at or something. So yeah, there's been a lot of tricky things over the years, but nothing like really huge, nothing via FedEx or UPS or anything that was trackable. I have more recently though, I've had some contract clients through some business that I do, and they've sent me letters to those clients. So places where I guess I'm working per se. They've sent letters to the clients with my address and then the return address of like the opposite client, if that makes sense. So for instance, if my client got the letter, it was addressed to me, and I had a return address of a separate client. If they did return to sender, then it would go to my other client.
Oh, so they're like harassing different parts of your life, your network.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where is that information kept that they would know how to find your clients' addresses?
That's a good question. I guess like via social media, maybe. Maybe photo tags, I'm guessing, or, you know, maybe something that was said, stuff like that.
Crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's full on. She's full on and does not want to be found. I don't care who she is. I honestly spent so much time trying to dissect it, trying to go through my friends list, delete people, block people. I mean, I've done it all. This has been 6 years, so I've had lots of time to think about it. And what I've really realized is it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who it is. It's somebody I know, somebody maybe I knew at one point who has some sort of obsession with me, but it doesn't really matter who it is. And I don't even care if they get prosecuted. Really what I want for them is to get some mental health or psychiatric help. I want them to realize what they're doing wrong and what they've done wrong and how it's affected me. And I just want them to apologize and to stop. That's all I want. I don't really think that this is someone who obviously is in their right mind. You know, harassment in Canada, we don't have stalking, like the same kind of stalking laws that you have in the US. In Canada, it's called criminal harassment. So it's a little bit different, prosecution. And it's a little bit more difficult to get any sort of like arrest, essentially. We don't have a restraining order the same way that you have in the US. We have something that's called a peace bond, which is similar, but it would be like they have to stay away from you for 12 months, have to go to court, all that kind of stuff. So, I would like to get that if necessary, but ultimately I think it's kind of like when someone goes to AA and they realize what they've done wrong and they have to go back and like apologize, with the 12 steps and apologize to the people that they've wronged. That's really what I want. I want an apology, and I just want it to stop. And quite frankly, because it's gone on for so long, and this is something I've discovered along the way with law enforcement is, this person's pretty good at it. So they're probably doing it to other people. So, when I first started receiving the letters, like it was like hard, embarrassing. It was hard to talk to people about it. And I really didn't have anywhere to go. Like I did a lot of research online, but you hear other types of stalking stories that are more like some of the other ones that have been on your podcast, like more criminal or, erotomania, that kind of thing, but nothing that's really like this case. So I've never really come across someone else that has been like harassed like this in kind of like an evil way, but not actually threatening, right? So it was really hard for me to find support and resources, even with like the victim services through the police department. Everyone, they try to help me and they try to be sympathetic, but there's nothing really out there. So, I'm hoping that by sharing my story, I can help someone else who's going through the same thing, because I think there's a lot more people out there that this happens to than you realize.
Did you ever feel like it was going to escalate or that you felt threatened by this?
The only time I really felt physically threatened is when I knew that they'd been around my house and had left things on my windshield and then at my front door. Just the fact that someone has really gone to those lengths to come around my house, that did make me feel scared. But I have some really barky, loud dogs now, so I feel safe.
Do you think it could escalate in the future, or do you feel like it's just going to stay letters?
I think just given the track record of what's happened so far, I think it's going to stay the way it is. The last several years, it has really been the same content regurgitated different ways. So a lot of the same. It's not really anything new. It's not very smart, to be honest with you. It's just a lot of really hurtful, mean, evil words.
Are there other people in your life that are trying to figure out who this is for you?
Absolutely. Oh my word. We've spent so much time. I have a really good, like I said, I've lost some friends along the way, but I have a really good, close set of girlfriends, and couple friends as well. And, this is where the cream has really risen to the top, and you really find out who your true friends are and the people that stick with you. They cry with you when you want to cry. They let you have a pity party, bring you over a bottle of wine, have a bonfire with the letters and, on to the next day. So yeah, we've spent a lot of time doing, some true crime investigation, but so far we've got some things in the works. And there's, I don't want to say too much because it's ongoing, but I definitely have some things in the works with law enforcement and also some other stuff.
How has this changed your life?
Well, it's been a real evolution, I think. It's like asking somebody like, how's your life changed after a trauma? And it's almost like it changes your personality. In some ways, it's made me much more compassionate towards people. I have a lot more empathy for people who are going through hurt hurt feelings. And I've heard this, and I mean, you've probably heard it too, but it's hurt people that hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So I do have a lot more empathy for people that are going through hard times, that lash out. I think it's made me a better friend and mother. But, it's also made me a little bit wary, for sure. There's probably things I would have done with gusto before that I don't do the same way now. I always have it in the back of my mind, like, what kind of repercussions would happen if I do that? For instance, like, if I want to post something, really, if I want to brag about my kids, let's say, on social media, it's always in the back of my mind, like, is this something that they're going to grab onto and ridicule me, or is this going to be something that is going to come back in a letter later? So I use my words pretty carefully. I'm careful about who I tag in things. So I'm much more careful on social media. Obviously, my Instagram and Facebook settings are pretty locked down. Overall, I think it's like I'm going into my 50s, and like I just want a peaceful, quiet, happy life. That's really what I wish for. And I wish that for the stalker too. Like I wish for them to have like peace and happiness and move on with their life and, quit bugging me. Just move on with your life.
Do people that have been through harassment or stalking turn to you once you share with them?
It's only been the last probably 6 or 8 months that I've been a little bit more public about what I've gone through on my Facebook page and within certain groups that I'm in. So I've had some people reach out to me that, I haven't talked to for years, like somebody I worked with on a project like 10, 15 years ago who reached out, and he had gone through a similar situation. Someone I went to high school with, she reached out. I hadn't seen her since like the late 80s. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have had more people come forward, being supportive and also, sharing their stories. So I think that's something that I really missed out on in the early years by being so quiet about it, was the fact that, if you are more public and you do talk about it more, there are other people going through the same thing. And as much as there's like evil, crappy people in the world, there's a lot of really good people too. And sometimes, if you're a little bit more vulnerable, it sort of empowers others to be vulnerable as well. So that's a lesson I think that's come through all of this.
What's some of the advice that you would give to somebody in your situation?
We're in 2020. Times are different when it comes to social media, for sure. Of course, I think everyone should be private and also sort of selective into who that they let into their circle. That's one thing. I think it's hard to know for sure, but, definitely make sure you're always aware of your surroundings. Make sure that you're not too, you don't set yourself up being vulnerable. There's all the regular things that they tell you, like, don't do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. But like, you gotta be true to you as well, like, I see all these people online, like influencers, for instance, right? Who are very public, about their lives and about where they're at. And, I think like, geez, it just takes one person to ruin it. It just takes one nut bucket deluxe to ruin your life.
What kind of advice do you pass on to your kids?
I think, you always have to keep in the back of your mind the fact that, the wrong person could be looking at this. The wrong person, could be watching me. However, I guess it's sort of a risk reward type of thing. You have to look at the sort of the cost benefit analysis, So, with my own family, of course, I didn't talk about it with my kids right away because they were younger. And then as they've gotten older and, our lives started to get more affected by this, I had to tell them, especially when we had police coming over all the time. So, they're aware of this, and they know what's going on, and they've been afraid, and they don't understand either. Like, why would someone do this to my mom? So that's been hard for me, for sure. Because of course you never want your kids to see you in pain. And, they have seen me in some pretty painful, vulnerable moments. So I think just, watching us go through it, and me trying to be as strong and dedicated as I've tried to be with them, I guess that's the only advice I can give.
I mean, I think that's great advice.
Well, what are the steps that one needs to take in order to build a case?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, but, as frustrating as it is to document everything, it's really important to, just keep a timeline. If anything, keep all your evidence, keep it in a plastic sealed bag. The police have all of my stuff now. As I receive new things, of course, I don't touch it. I only open the letters with gloves on. And then I put it right away in a Ziploc bag and hand it over to the police. I keep a timeline, and I am adding to it as things come. And that's for my own purposes as well, because this has been a long time and it gets confusing. We almost forget sometimes what's happened in what order. So it's really important just to keep a log of everything that's happened for yourself. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know, what little tip or trick or something that's said is going to break the case. So that's sort of number one. Always keeping yourself, being aware of your surroundings, making sure you've got, surveillance in your car, outside your home, stuff like that. And as much as, it can seem like the police are not helpful, it's still really important that you document everything with the police and keep that file active. If you get a new officer, constable, whatever, wherever you are, that's assigned to your case, then keep them up to date on what's happening. It only takes a couple of minutes, and I think it's the most important thing in terms of maybe getting some justice in the long run.
What kind of advice do you want to give someone about dealing with this on the mental health issue? All the kind of, turmoil that you have to deal with, and all the, not feeling secure and your safety being compromised. What are the things that you'd want to tell people, if they were in this similar situation?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure. And, I've thought a lot about this because, I think about celebrities, for instance, who, someone really famous, like let's say Justin Bieber, and he gets, hundreds of thousands of positive comments, but then he might get 100 terrible comments, but you focus on the terrible comments, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, as humans, we do that. I don't know why we want to believe the bad about ourselves and not the good. But you really have to be really dig deep and surround yourself with good people that know who you are in your heart, that they love you for who you are, and deep down know that you're a good person. And it's tough. It's really tough when people are trying to tear you down, and I think probably something that I didn't do early enough was get help myself, get therapy myself. I tried to deal with it on my own because, for one, it's sort of embarrassing to try to tell someone about all this. It seems ridiculous and crazy. Hello, I'm a woman that's 45 years old. I'm getting harassing letters that my husband's cheating on me. And of course they say, well, do you think he is cheating on you? Well, no, I don't. And, you have to go through all of that, right? It's exhausting. And sometimes you just want to lock it away and forget about it. But you do have to sort of go through the pain in order to get through the other side. So, that's one thing that I would suggest to others going through something like this, is that reach out. You got to reach out to friends. You got to get support. Surround yourself with people that are good to you, that love you, that are there to wipe your tears and bring you a glass of wine and show you that you're the good person that you are. Even if you feel like, maybe I did deserve this. Maybe I deserve this. Like I'm a bad person, or I blogged a little, like I was too sassy. I was too confident. Maybe I shouldn't be so confident, right? Like it's all those certain things that dredges up like your self-doubt. You have to really spend time with yourself and like do a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. Stalking, being part of the stalking club is a club that no one wants to be a part of.
What are some of the coping mechanisms that you use to get through this?
I do a lot of meditation every day. I sort of go through a grieving process every time this happens, and it opens up old wounds. Sometimes in past years, my grieving process was sometimes like 5 days to 2 weeks where I was like really down. So now my grieving process is like shorter because I've learned how to deal with it. I allow myself a little bit of a pity party to like sort of feel sorry for myself. But I don't let it go on too long. And then I do things that make me happy. I work out a lot more than I used to. I just don't let it take away my joy. Well, of course, finding out their identity would put it to rest, right? Because once I know who it is, that will help me shed a lot of light on a lot of unknowns. Because when you don't know who it is, it's almost like in your mind, it can become multiple people, right? Like it's like a blanket of people rather than one certain individual. So once, if I know, or when I find out their identity, then that's going to, put a lot of questions to bed. So yeah, I would like to find out who it is, but I have to move forward in my life knowing, or I have to move forward thinking that might not happen. I may not ever find out who it is, so I can't really like obsess about that. So, like I said before, I would really like this person to, let's face it, like they do deserve some punishment. Come on now. They deserve punishment. I'd like to find out if they're doing it to anyone else, because they are really good at it. But I would like to see them get some help. Like, can you imagine being so obsessed with someone else's life that, you every night you go home and write little notes about them, or spend time on your computer, like in your pajamas, like writing hateful things? Like, it's just despicable human behavior. It really is. So I think ultimately I would just like them to stop. I would like them to apologize, and I would like them to get psychiatric help. And I would like to be an advocate for other victims that are going through things like this. It doesn't just happen online and on social media. It doesn't just happen to young people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sort of what you would call your average Canadian person, middle class, doing the do, working, 2 kids, happy family. I'm not unusual.
What is next for you?
I'm at a point in my life where I've got 2 older kids that are taking off in their lives, and I'm doing a bit of a career switch myself, and I'm going to pursue some of that. And I'm also, working towards like more peace and joy. So it sounds so corny, geez. I'm working on my next big thing. Let's put it that way.
Scarlett, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
If anyone out there is in need of help or is a victim of stalking, please reach out. You can find a list of resources on our Instagram at Strictly Stalking Pod.
I'm Jacob Tula.
And I'm Jamie Beebe. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Strictly Stalking.